weight fluctuations. Almost everybody freaks out by them. Even people who understand like how to actually not be affected by weight fluctuations because they know what it is. Even those people get emotionally disturbed by weight fluctuations. And the problem, okay, so I'm gonna tell you exactly what weight fluctuations are and why they don't matter, and a better metric or a better thing to look at, okay, that actually gives you an indicator of is what you're doing working and your true rate of progress, okay? So now, let's start with a few basic premises, okay? First and foremost, if you look at the physics and the math of it, gold standard, you are going to lose maybe 2 to 4 ounces of body fat per day. 2 to 4 ounces. This is a 5 ounce V8. So we're looking at, 1 to 2/3 of this. Okay, which is that's quite a bit. But now the problem is this is 33 ounces. It's about a liter. You already know, okay, if I drink that liter, which I have been known to do 2-3 times a day, if I stand on the scale and then I drink that water, what's gonna happen when I stand back on the scale? Obviously, the scale will have gone up. So the same thing will happen if I step on the scale and then I go pee, the scale will have gone down. It fluctuates. Did either of those situations mean that I lost or gained body fat? I know this sounds very obvious, but if fluctuations bother you, then you have to start with these like fundamental, starting points before you do anything else. So, all right, we're like, okay, I know I didn't gain fat when I drank a water and that liter of water and the scale went up. I know that if I eat a good sized meal, and if I were to weigh all that food and the food weighed, let's say, 1.5 pounds, and then I step on the scale, will the scale go up 1.5 pounds? The answer to that is obvious. The scale will go up 1.5 pounds because that food is now in me. But did that mean that I gained 1.5 pounds of fat? Again, I know this sounds very silly, but this is where we have to start if these things affect you. If these things emotionally disturb you, you have to start here. So, cool. Now we understand that. If you go to the bathroom and you evacuate, right? Or poop, and you step back on the scale, you weigh less. Does that mean that you lost 2 pounds of fat? No, it does not. That means you just evacuated the food that was in your stomach, okay? So now, when we first established this, along with the fact that your gold standard, you're losing 2 to 4 ounces of fat per day, And all these things can change the scale, and they're far greater than 2 to 4 ounces. You now know that your 2 to 4 ounces gold standard fat loss every day is going to get covered up in those fluctuations. So you have to be patient, because if you stack up enough days of 2 ounce fat loss, right, in the course of a week, 2 times 7, 14, you're gonna lose about a pound of fat, okay? Like 100% fat, not just the scales going up and down and it's fluctuating. So all we're trying to do is stack those 2 ounce wins, those 2 ounce days for a very long time, okay? And that's something that when people even know this, and then they see the scale went up 3 pounds, and they're like, oh my God, and they're freaking out. It's the wrong thing to put your attention on. I know I had a client this morning who was freaking out, and I was like, dude, did you track your calories? Did you eat accurately? And he's like, no. And I was like, then you do not reserve the right to be upset about a day-to-day fluctuation if you are not putting the input correctly. It's like, let's say I have a room and I want to turn the lights on because it's dark, and I walk into the dark room and I know the light switch is to the left of the door, but then I'm just fumbling around in the rest of the room, just being like, man, it's so dark in here. Like, I'm trying to turn the lights on. Well, unless you go over to where you know the switch is and turn the switch, you don't, like, you do not reserve the right to feel bad about this. I mean, you can, obviously, but it's not going to be useful, right? And so now, now knowing this, what's a more useful way to monitor progress? And I'm glad you asked. So every week you average out your weight, okay? Let's say it's 162.4, 162.7, 165.2. You get the idea. You add them all up and you divide by 7. That gives you your average for the week. Now, let's say that average is 167.2. Next week, the average is, let's say, 167.1. Well, guess what? Now the weekly average is showing you true progress. Okay, so we need to shift our attention. And by the way, within those 7 days or 14 days, there's going to be wild fluctuations in daily weigh-ins, which don't matter because of all the stuff we just talked about. But over the course of a month, you're going to look at those weekly averages and you're going to get a very good idea of what's going on. And we're going to smooth out those fluctuations so you get a true picture of what's happening. So the second thing that I look at, okay, is weekly lows. So like each week has 7 weigh-ins, right? So out of those 7 weigh-ins, I'm going to find what is the lowest weigh-in for that week. The following week, I'll see what are my 7 weigh-ins and what is the lowest weigh-in for that week. And what you're going to find is every week you're hitting a new weekly low, okay? Again, I would not get hyper fixated on this, because it's still not as valuable as looking at the rolling weekly averages. But looking for a weekly low, it helps add to that like calmness and patience, because I don't need each day to be lower and lower and lower. I just need every week to have one new low, okay? And so the second little part of that, the weekly lows, is when you, let's say you have 4 weigh-ins in 167, okay? So 167.1, 167.8, 167.4. Let's say you have actually 6 weigh-ins in 167, and you have 1 weigh-in in 166, okay? Well, the following week, let's say you have only 3 weigh-ins in the 167s, and let's say you have 3 weigh-ins in the 166s, and then you have 1 weigh-in in the 165s. So this is another way that I look at the trends versus, oh my God, the weight went up. This gives you an accurate picture. So once you start having less weigh-ins in the higher number, and then the 7 days now spreads out to a lower number, if that makes sense, that's also giving you that, picture of like, okay, what is the trend here? Now, all this being said, a very important piece of this is when you understand this, then what you gotta do is you have to put your entire focus on the calories coming in. Okay, vast majority of people, they're fixated on what does the scale say, okay, and it's not helpful, especially since it's not, most vast majority of people don't even know how to look at the scale in a useful way. And instead, looking at the scale and seeing a jump up makes them feel bad, and then they end up doing stupid stuff that then further widens the gap, right? It's that stimulus response outcome cycle where something happens, you respond, it makes you feel, your response is like emotionally disturbed in some way, and then that leads to another feeling, and then that feeling feels bad, and then it leads you to doing something shitty, like, so that's that doom spiral, right? In this case, it would be like you saw the scale go up, you thought you were doing everything right, which again, most of us are not being honest with ourselves that we're not doing everything right. And you thought you were doing everything right. You looked at the scale and it went up, and then you were like, oh, well, what's the fucking point? Like, I did everything and it still, fluctuated up. No. First and foremost, be honest with yourself, because, who are you harming other than yourself? Put your focus on accurately counting your calories for a long enough time period where you learn. And look, if you don't want to count calories, then don't count calories. It's the fucking most enlightening way to go about it. You learn so much when you have tracked 100 things 1,000 times, right? And then you don't need to track anymore. But you don't know what you don't know, and you won't find out until you get in there and you start weighing and measuring and tracking in an app. So last thing, right? Like, I encourage you to actually, take your daily weigh-ins and log them, but don't try to put meaning or interpret day-to-day change. Like, I won't even look at it. Like, I don't care about day-to-day change. I care about the weekly averages, like I've been saying. So, and by the way, I let's be adults in this whole thing. Like, why am I throwing a temper tantrum because a number on a little platform has changed? Am I an adult or am I a child? Right? I don't need to throw a temper tantrum, because an adult would understand, okay, weight fluctuations, like what I said at the beginning, weight will fluctuate. If I drink this bottle of water, it's gonna go up. So why would I get mad, like, when I know, okay, the weight went up 2 pounds overnight, but guess what? I ate dinner late last night. That food is now going through the digestive system and it hasn't evacuated yet. So all that weight of the food is gonna show up on the scale. Does that mean that it is body fat? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that. Especially if you're in a calorie deficit, that food did not turn into fat. Calorie deficit, I want to always over explain this because it's so obvious, but I think we just need more and more simplicity of the core things. A calorie deficit means you're this piece of machinery, right? Like this was a factory. So you could go back to that factory analogy, which is I think a really good analogy for this. But this factory requires X amount of units of energy and materials to function every day. We use calories to determine what that amount is. If that amount is 2,500 and I start eating only 2,000, where is it gonna make up that difference of 500? I'm glad you asked. The fat on your body is just calories. It's food. It's what it is, okay? It's food that has been stored for convenient use in case, for some reason, I start getting less than 2,500. Like, really just think about how simple that is, right? Try to marinate in that concept because that's what you're trying to do. You got food on you. You got extra food on you. That the biological purpose of body fat is in case you can't get food, hopefully you got some stored on you so that you can use it until you find more food. Biology doesn't care about anything. It only cares about survival, and it would make perfect sense that it would have a mechanism to store food for later. And again, you can look at it in the animal world, which is I really like to observe things in the animal world because it gives a little bit more of a sense of, because in the human world, people get all kinds of things mixed up and like that are not, they're all made up. These are made up things, okay? The truth is, whatever is in nature, like whatever exists in nature, it is good and it is there for a reason. Just because we don't understand the reason or somebody has convinced us that, I don't know, people are always trying to convince us of different things, but just because they are, and they're probably trying to sell you something, which in and of itself is not bad, but you should be aware that if somebody's trying to sell me something, I have to ask, like, how much benefit do I get from do you get more benefit from me buying this, or do I get more benefit from me buying this, right? Because, that old saying, if you go to the town barber, he's going to say you need a haircut. So be aware of the influences. And I think the last couple videos are really good because we've been talking about programming, and like beliefs and where they come from, and beginning to form your own thoughts and beliefs, and knowing which ones are actually yours or which ones were there, being programmed into you by family, culture, society, social media. Like, one of the things that I really feel good about, or that makes me feel good, is to think that I'm an independent thinker and I know how to filter to to something, the information that will actually benefit me. Because most people, they don't even know how to look at information. They just see something and they're like, they don't even question it. They either get pissed off about it, or they're like, just take it as, you know, gospel. And so I like to think of myself as one of the reasons that I've accomplished all the things physically that I have and helped all my clients over the years is because I never accepted all these random thoughts from others as the truth. Even the thoughts that were popping up in my head, I've always been like, okay, is this actually what I think? Is this actually what I want? Or am I going along with somebody else for whatever reason? All right, well, that's enough for today. I got a lot of work to do today. Not a huge fan of work, to be honest. At least not in the way that most people go about it. I do love to go to the stores, do the stuff, interact with customers, make the store look nice, you know, have the store be profitable. I love those types of things. I love going to the gym and coaching my clients in the gym. I love doing this, being, you know, sharing this type of information in a very relaxed way, because I think most information being shared is just like, oh, well, these guys are assholes, and this is completely wrong, and that guy's an idiot. And but I am still, so one of the things that I'm personally working on is being more organized, because I have so many moving pieces. I have so many moving pieces between the properties, the stores, my clients, my online clients, that it can be just like, oh, go, 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 and just calls all day from this to that to this. And so, although I do love all of the stuff, that's something that I'm working on, is trying to organize it better, so then I can leisurely go about doing all this stuff. Because at the end of the day, none of this stuff matters. I was talking with a bunch of clients. It's like we make ourselves miserable by stressing out, and we make ourselves sick and unhealthy by stressing out about all these serious things, these real things, credit scores, bills, and tax return, and what's going on in this part, and like all these things, which are all made up. And it's like most people are spinning their wheels trying to get somewhere. They don't know where they're trying to get, and even when they get there, they realize they never built the skill of being peaceful and being able to enjoy life and feeling good. Because I'm gonna assume that the point is to feel good. So anyways, that's a different ramble for a different day. But I'm gonna get back to work here. So as always, feel free to message me. I do have a burrito diet and eat dessert every day workshop coming up, and so that'll be for 3 people. So we're gonna do a very intimate group, and you know, each person is gonna walk away with a completely individual, step-by-step practical program focused on high enjoyment and high convenience. And so anyways, we'll build that together. I find it much more valuable when there's 2 or 3 people, because then you get to see other pieces and you get a more full picture of how to go about the plan. So anyways, that's coming up. And it's $100, 3 people. Just find me on Instagram, rambier.sangera. Shoot me a message. like some of the stuff, you know, share the love.